Hello students, welcome back to your history class. We are doing chapter 7, the changing cultural traditions. I am Ms. Jenny Shah and we are at the end of the chapter. Today we will learn about reading the universe. So Galileo had once remarked that the Bible that lights the roads to heaven does not say much on how the heaven works. The work of these thinkers showed that knowledge, as distinct from belief, that knowledge was based on observation and experiment. Once these scientists had shown the way, experiments and investigations into what came to be called physics, chemistry, and biology expanded rapidly. Historians were to label this new approach to knowledge of man and nature the scientific revolution. Consequently, in the mind of skeptics and non believers, God began to be replaced by nature as the source of creation. So now, in people's mind, God was replaced by nature. They realized that source of creation is the nature. Even those who retained their faith in God started talking about a distant God who does not directly regulate the act of living in the material world. Such ideas were popularized through scientific societies that established a new scientific culture in the public domain. The Paris Academy, established in 1670, the Royal Society in London, for the promotion of natural knowledge. It was formed in 1662 and it held lectures and conducted experiments for public viewing. So, as a result of the Copernicus revolution, the minds of skeptics, the non-believers, nature was now started to replace the God as the source of creation. The believers of God said that their God did not directly control the act of living in the world. A new scientific culture came into existence as several scientific societies popularized scientific ideas. The scientific societies were formed like the Royal Society of London in 1662 and the Paris Academy in 1670. They were held they held lectures and they carried out experiments for public viewing. Now let's reconsider and re-understand the concept of Renaissance. Can we see this particular period as marking a sharp break with the past and the rebirth of ideas from Greek and Roman traditions? Was the earlier period a time of darkness? Modern writers like Peter Brook of England have suggested that Burckhardt was exaggerating the sharp difference between this period and the one that preceded it, especially by using the term Renaissance, which implies that Greek and Roman civilizations were reborn at this time and that the scholars and artists of this period substituted the pre Christian worldview of the Christian. Both arguments were exaggerated. Scholars in the earlier centuries had been familiar with Greek and Roman cultures, and the religion continued to be a very important part of people's lives. To contrast the Renaissance as a period of dynamism and artistic creativity, and the Middle Ages as a period of gloom and lack of development, is an oversimplification. Many elements associated with the Renaissance in Italy can be traced back to the 12th and 13th century. It has been suggested by some historians that in the 9th century in France, there had been a similar literary and arti- artistic blossoming. So now, what are modern writers like Peter Brook saying that uh, they're suggesting that Burckhardt had actually exaggerated this period of Renaissance. According to them, uh, there wasn't such a sharp contrast between the period pre that substituted. Like they are trying to say that Burckhardt is called one era as Dark Age, and then there is Renaissance. So he's trying to say that there wasn't such a sharp difference between the period that preceded it, especially because he's using the term Renaissance. Okay, the cultural changes in Europe at this time were not shaped only by the classical civilization of Rome and Greece. The archaeological and literary recovery of Roman culture did create great administration of that civilization. So basically, Peter Burke started to question Burckhardt's idea of Renaissance. He said that the term Renaissance implies the rebirth of Greek and Roman civilization and the substitution of pre-Christian world for the Christian world by the artists and scholars of that period. He's saying that both the arguments are exaggerated. By terming the word Renaissance as a period of imaginative creativity and the Middle Ages as a period of darkness is just generalization. The elements of Renaissance were already seen from the 12th and 13th centuries, and he's saying that even in the 9th century in France, there was a literary and artistic bloom. Further, he's saying that the archaeological and the literary findings of Roman culture show that the technologies and skills in Asia had contributed to the cultural changes of Europe. So he's saying that the cultural changes in Europe at that time were not only and only shaped by the classical civilization of Greece and Roman. In fact, the archaeological and the literary recovery of Roman culture also created a great admiration of that civilization. Technologies and skills in Asia had moved far ahead of what the Greeks and Romans had had. Much more of the world had become connected, and the new techniques of navigation enabled people to sail more further than what had been possible earlier. The expansion of Islam and Mongol conquest had linked Asia and North Africa with Europe, although not politically, but in the terms of trade and learning skills. The Europeans learned not just from the Greeks and Romans, but they now learned also from India, Arabia, Iran, Central Asia, and China. These depths were not acknowledged for a long time because when the history of this period started to be written, historians saw it from a Europe centered point of view. So, the archaeological and the literary findings of Roman culture show that the technological skills in Asia also contributed to the cultural changes of Europe. The expansion of Islam and Mongol, uh, and becoming partners in trade and learning skills also uh, shaped the cultural changes. Europe, along with Romans and Greeks, got knowledge also from India, China, Iran, Arabia, and Central Asia. The Asian contributors were soon forgotten with writing of history from the Europe centered point of view. An important change that did happen in this particular period was that Gradually, the private and public spheres of life began to become separate. The public sphere meant the area of government and of formal religion, and the private sphere included the family and personal religion. The individual had a private as well as a public role. He was not simply a member of one of the three orders, he was also a person of his own right. An artist was not just a member of a guild, he was known for himself. In the 18th century, this sense of individualism was expressed in a political form in the belief that all individuals had equal political rights. Another development was that the different religions of Europe started to have their separate sense of identity based on language. Europe, earlier United Party of Roman Empire and later by Latin Christianity, was now slowly dissolving into states, each united by a common language. So another development that took place was that the different regions of Europe started to have their own sense of identity, especially based on the language. Like right now, we know Rome, Italy, France, Switzerland, they all have separate languages. And now Europe started to dissolve into states, and each state were united on the basis of common language. Okay, now passage based references. There are a few passages in this chapter which are important. So let's go there. The first one is the important events of the 14th century. That was when humanist was taught as a subject at Padula. So the important events that happened in the 14th and the 15th century. This is on page number 155. We have a timeline with us. Well, humanism is taught at the Padua University in Italy in 1300. Then Petrarch title is given to poet laureate in Rome in 1341. Then university is established in Florence 1349. Then Canterbury Tales was published by Geoffrey Chaucer. He was the writer. So Canterbury Tales was published in 1390. Then we have the Brunelleschi designs the Duomo in Florence in 1436. Then there is the defeat of Byzantine ruler of Constantinople by the Ottoman Turks in 1453. Printing of Bible with movable type of Gutenberg. So Gutenberg prints the Bible with movable types that will become portable. Okay, basically printing. It's in 1454. Calculation of latitude by observing the sun. Portuguese mathematicians in 1484. Columbus reached America in 1492. The Last Supper was painted by Leonardo in 1495. And painting of the Sistine Chapel ceiling by Michelangelo in 1512. These are the most important events of the 14th and the 15th century. Moving further, important events of the 16th century. This is on page number 165. 1516, there was the publication of Utopia by Thomas More. 1517, Martin Luther writes 95 Theses, and he translates the Bible into German in 1522. 1525, peasants start revolting in Germany. 1543, Andreas Vesalius writes on an anatomy. 1559, Anglican Church established in England with the King and Queen as its head. 1569, Gerhardus Mercator prepares a cylindrical map of the Earth. 1582, Pope Gregory XIII introduced the Gregorian calendar. 1628, William Harvey linked the heart with blood circulation. 1673, Academy of Science founded in Paris. And 1687, Isaac Newton published Principia Mathematica. The key words of this chapter: humanism. It's a Latin word. It's from the Latin word humanist, from which the humanities was derived, has been used many centuries ago by the Roman lawyers and essayed Cicero. It is not drawn from or connected with religion. Renaissance man. This was the term Renaissance man is often used to describe a person with many interests and skills. There were scholars, diplomat, theologian, artist combined in one. The New Testament. The New Testament is that section of Bible that deals with the life and teachings of Christ and his early followers. So with this, we have wrapped up the chapter today. Tomorrow we'll do a quick look with the notes, and day after we will do the passage-based questions and answers. So for that, you will be sitting with your textbooks. With this, I end today's class. Children, stay home, stay safe, take care, keep learning. Thank you.